So I recently decided to open up a little bit about my life and the fact that yes, I was in a cult for 5 years. And I'm kind of interested in expanding a little bit further, especially considering that so far, um, the reception has been pretty good. Like, nobody's been a pedantic beater in the comments yet, which is really nice. Whenever you talk about being in a cult, people like to make their opinions known, which is really unnecessary. You don't need to say anything. And if you don't believe me, I don't actually give a fuck. Um, but it pisses me off just because like other survivors who might be in a more vulnerable place, that can really fuck them up. Like I have been free at this point for like 12 years, and so I've had a lot of time to heal and process. I mean, that's a lie. I've only really been processing for like the last year. But I've had time. I've had time, okay? But yeah, let's get into it. Let's talk about it a little bit. So from when I was 11 to 16, I was part of a cult. And this was headed by somebody who was my same age during the whole thing, which also makes people be a little bit fussy. Like, and it makes me mad just because it's like, serial killers, cult leaders, abusers, they don't just spawn in one day like an NPC. They were a child once, and the way that they know how to do what they do is practice. And if they have the brain type where they're going to cause this kind of harm, they've practiced. Okay? And so my cult was my abuser's practice round. And I call it a cult. Like, in my brain, I more call it a pseudo cult because I don't think our intention was to be a cult. I don't think, like, all of us joined for the intention of glory under the name of our abuser, but rather it was just became a cult. I don't know what my abuser's actual intention was other than just power, so I can't really say for certain. But anyway, pseudo cult or a cult doesn't really matter. We have 9 out of the 11 fucking characteristics of a cult, which is a fully fledged cult if you don't know. So let's get into it. So when I was 11 years old, I was a very socially awkward child. I was not very socially forward. All the friends that I had kind of just happened. Very middle, like elementary school kind of way, you know? You either just kind of fall together because you're all in the same bubble, or they reach out to you and you wind up friends with them. At the time, my friend group really was just 4 people up until one of us moved away. And the 2 friends that were left outside of me never really got along. They got along for the sake of the group, but they didn't really like each other. And so when the other person moved away, they made it very clear that they weren't going to sustain the friend group in middle school. They were going to go look for their own friends and have a more healthy dynamic. And I was happy for them. Like, even if it meant kind of sad times for me, I want my friends to be happy. And if I had to spend time between 2 friend groups, you know what? So be it. But I also was like thinking maybe it's time for me to try and be a little bit more socially open. So during middle school orientation, because yes, that was a thing, because this was back in 2008, I decided that I really wanted to be more socially open and try and make friends. When I was waiting in line to get my photo taken for my student ID, which is very exciting for 11-year-old me, there was a girl right next to me online, and I decided in that moment that it was a perfect time to try it out. Even if I failed, the likelihood of seeing this person again was so small, and waiting in line for 20 minutes to get my photo taken, might as well chat someone up in the meantime. So that's what I did. And she was so cool. Like, the moment that I started talking to her, I was like, I really hope she likes me. Like, I chose so well for a person to talk to in line. And by the time it came my turn, I was like, oh my god, I think I've met my best friend. I think I've met my new best friend. And so pretty much immediately I introduced her to my two different friend groups. One person liked her, one person did not. And of course, I went with the person who liked her, and that became my predominant friend group. Everyone else thought she was as cool as I did. And I was like, heck yes, she is. And this is the friend I made. Socially awkward me made a friend, and she's cool. So for the first year of like sixth grade, everything was very normal. There was like a couple of like, wait a minute moments that I can like look back at now, and we'll get into those possibly a little bit later if I remember to. But then in 12th grade, or when I was 12 years old in sixth and seventh grade, things began to change. It was a little bit more hierarchical. There was definitely a few more wait a moment minutes, but that was kind of expected. Like, I was part of Girl Scouts at the time. I'm non-binary, by the way. My pronouns are they, them. But like at the time, I didn't know I was non-binary because, again, this is like 2009. Did not know this shit. But in Girl Scouts, it was something that was talked about at length. We literally even watched Mean Girls to like show us that clicks happen when puberty happens. Puberty is a bad time for everyone, and your hormones are gonna go wild, and you're gonna hate everyone and everything, and that's just expected. So having a friend group kind of restructure into a more toxic thing kind of felt like that was just what was meant to happen, you know? And as well at the time, like there was so many things going on where like I was really reliant on my friend group for a sense of normalcy and safety. My home life was not great. I was being horrifically bullied to the point that I still have scars on my body from the assaults that I went through. So my friend group was very much my safe haven. And yeah, if it was a little bit toxic and there was a couple wait a moment minutes, like whatever. Like, I would rather be in somewhere where I'm questioning myself occasionally rather than constantly feeling like I am on defense and like I'm having to fight for my life. Like, I'd much rather be with my friend group than anywhere else. Also, like at 12 years old, what person is going to look at their toxic friend group and be like, yeah, I think I'm gonna be in a cult? No, no, Babs, nobody's gonna do that. Like, unless you're a super socially aware 12-year-old. Um, and so it kind of continued into like eighth grade, a few more what the fuck moments, but nothing wild. You know, the most wild thing that happened was like somebody kidnapped me for a date and told me that my best friend told them that was okay. And I was like, buddy, what the fuck? Like, on what fucking planet does that make sense? Because I don't believe it for a second. And this all kind of led up into ninth grade and another couple of really bad moments, one of which led to me being exiled from the friend group, which is valid, by the way. Like, it's still something that I wake up at night and have nightmares over. Like, I'm still processing my own emotions around everything, but basically, there was a person that was being introduced into one of the higher tiers of our friend group because we had tiers, even if it wasn't explicit. It was very, very obvious whenever we were talking about anything. It was a full council meeting. Like we all sat around basically like a club, and we're like, yay or nay on including this person into outdoor meetups, like outside of school. Also, like by the way, by the time I was in high school, my friend group was like 25 people. Just sit on that and think for a second. I had 25 people in my friend group. Tell me that's not a fucking cult. Tell me that's not a fucking cult at that point. Anyway, there was this one person that we're considering into bringing basically into the higher parts of it where like you get to hang out with us and you get to know us. And at this point in my life, my entire home life is falling apart. I was actively looking into running away. A lot of shit was going sideways for me. But this person reminded me of my dad in a really bad way, and I just didn't have any interest in being around this person. It felt like being at home all over again, and I just did not want to be around this person. So I let my best friend for life know about this, and through a lot of communication, I learned that this person hated me and was talking shit about me and my family and all this stuff. And we shared a class, we shared theater class, and on the week that we had shared skit, this was the week that I was fully ready to run away. Like, I was bringing clothes to school every day that week because I was fairly certain that I would run away. And like, I'd already tried. By the way, for context, like, I'd already tried. Like, I tried to stay over at a friend's house overnight, and her mom called my mom because she felt like she'd be kidnapping me. Still mad over that, by the way. If a kid comes to you in crisis and is like, hey, I can't come home today, do not call their fucking parents. CPS can get involved later, okay? Cops can get involved later. But, like, if a child comes to you and it's like, I don't want to go home, do not call their parents. Anyway, that rage aside. But, like, I was in a bad way, and so I completely forgot that we had a shared skit because I had bigger fish to fry, and tried to talk to my drama teacher and be like, hey, dude, hey, um, I've not had any space to do this because, like, crisis. Teacher didn't listen to me and basically allowed me to do the skit with a script, but I would be an auto failed for not doing this, which basically meant that we both failed and it was a really bad time for both of us. And because I was under the impression that this other person hated me, when they kicked up a fuss over me bombing our shared project, I went the fuck off and I said a lot of horrible things, and like there was no excuse or forgiveness for what I did. It like I said, like, I'm 28 now, and it still keeps me up at night. Like, it's still something that I wish I could undo. But that was my first moment of basically being not even my first moment, but that was like the first real test that I'd gone through. I'd been tested before, but that was the first real test that I went through in that cult. And the entirety of the time that I was basically exiled because, like, my best friend for life told me, who, by the way, is my abuser, um, told me, like, I can't be around you and I can't advocate for you because everyone else is really pissed at you. So I was exiled for 2 months, and the entirety of the 2 months, all I wanted to do was come back, which, again, massive fucking red flag of a cult is throw you out, see if you want to come back in. And I got accepted back in, made a whole apology over it, and continued to be part of this cult for another year and a half. At 15, going on 16, I had a moment where I realized that I had feelings for a person. At that time, I had kind of come to terms with, to the best of my language, that I was aromantic. Again, this is, before, in the before times. This is when we're really not talking. Like, this would have been, 2011, 2012 kind of region. So, like, the language here is not very strong. Like, we had bisexual, and that was about it. In terms of fancy terms, like, pansexual is new. Anyway, so, like, to the best of my language, I had understood that I was aromantic, but I had a whole crisis because I had a crush on a person, and told my best friend, because that's what you do when you have an entire fucking existential crisis. You talk to your friends. You're just like, I'm freaked out. So I had this whole conversation with her, and she helped me kind of coordinate talking to this person, figuring it out, letting me know, like, I'm not crazy. It's totally fine if you're interested in this person. And that's how it happened. I had to drop out of high school due to a lot of things, largely my mental health. And so the next time that I saw my friends was when I meet up to my house to see them. And my best friend stood in the corner the entire time making out with the person that I had a crush on. And, like, I don't feel like I own that person by any means before anyone gets their britches in a knot. You don't own a person, okay? The problem that I had was that this was my best friend. This was somebody that I bared my soul to and explained how monumental this moment was. And for this person to willingly choose to date the person that I had feelings for, knowing that this was a unicorn event, fucked me up. So, of course, I confronted her and was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And she looked me straight in the face and said, "We never had that conversation. It never happened." And that was the moment that everything fell apart. My entire reality shattered because I realized in that moment she had been lying to me for 5 years. This wasn't even the first stunt that she pulled. The person that kidnapped me on a date probably was telling the truth. The abuse that I shouted at that person in freshman year was unfounded. The intimate moments of every second of my life were influenced by lies and influenced by the reality that she had been feeding me. At this time, I didn't have the language to understand what gaslighting was, what psychological abuse was, or even what emotional abuse was. But in that moment, that's kind of what I realized was that was what I'd gone through. Again, like I didn't have the words to put into place what I'd gone through, but I recognized that that was what had happened. And so I turned to all of my friends and basically was like, this person's a fucking psycho. They're so deep into the Kool-Aid that they don't believe me. Because why would you? Like, honestly, if you were 15, 16 years old and somebody turns to you and says, hey, that person that you've trusted with everything, an abuser, a bad person, no one's going to believe you. No one's going to believe you. It makes complete sense. Like, I'm not mad over that. Like, I was in the moment, but I've had time to reflect. But in that moment, I lost everything. I lost my sanity, I lost my friends, I lost my trust and faith in people, and I was forced to realize that my reality for the last 5 years was fake. As I got older and I started to get into therapy and learn more about psychology, I used to be a psychology major. Fun facts about me. That crashed and burned for a lot of reasons, but that was when I first started learning about the terms of like gaslighting and what that really was and how that was an abuse that I'd gone through. And then when my therapist was the one to introduce the idea that what I'd been through was structurally a cult. And through looking at other cult survivors' experiences, I've begun to have a better ability to kind of grapple with everything that I've been through. Like, I know I'm not going into great detail about it because, like, honestly, I don't want to. It's a great vulnerability for me, and I'm terrified of letting other people in with that. I will, however, happily dox the person that abused me. By the way, like, that person I owed nothing to. That person stole every part of me. So, like, if by any chance, Ingrid, you are watching this, just gonna let you know. I can ruin your fucking life like you ruined mine. That is the only bit of vengeance that I have left in my body because I honestly do not give enough fucks about you. You don't have power over me anymore. But I will fucking ruin your life if you try to ruin mine. I'm just putting that out there. So, anyway, that's kind of what I've been through, and that's the cult that I survived. Like I said, I know there's not a grand amount of details. Um, at some point, I might do more when I'm feeling more open, but also it's not just my story to tell. There's a lot of other people that were involved in this. Like I said, like there was 25 people in my friend group. There was about 7 of us in the inner sanctum, and there was a lot of other people that broke off over time. Um, if I ever reconcile with my ex, I might be able to tell you with him a little bit more because he's another person that I really feel like could lend insight because that's how we got together. I was in a relationship for 6 years with a mutual survivor because he was the one that basically reached out to me and was like, hey, if you need anyone to like scream with or cry with, I'm here. Our relationship is a fucking toxic nightmare, but you know, he got me through a lot. But yeah, um, That is my cult story. At some point, I might go a little bit more in depth, but yeah, cults are real. They're not just about ooks and spooks. There can be real people doing really shitty things.